I gotta deal with every day, man.
Every week, inmates across the state of Georgia are putting themselves at risk to capture videos like this.
Every day, man.
They're sending these clips to advocacy groups to showcase what's happening behind prison walls.
This guy is knocked out cold. It is a gang beating.
The videos you're seeing were shot in Glenville at Smith State Prison.
Smith State Prison is just, unfortunately, one of the worst ones that we're seeing right now.
Since the start of the year, the Georgia Department of Corrections says there have been at least 5 homicides at this prison alone.
Never in my life did I imagine I would be watching things like this.
Susan Burns with a private Facebook group called They Have No Voice, and Brian Randolph with Human Civil Rights Coalition.
We're advocates for incarcerated people.
Have both been working to raise awareness to what's happening by sharing these videos on social media, reporting on deaths and beatings, even posting 911 calls.
It transcends race, it transcends age, it is just suffering. And that's all that's going on there. There's misery in Georgia prisons.
These advocates want you to know some of the people being attacked are non-violent offenders.
You're dealing with someone, like I say, with 8 or 9 months on a sentence, probation violation, that may not make it out alive.
They also want you to notice something that's missing from all of these videos.
You see all of these videos and you see all of the gang violence and just the violence taking place. And you never see an officer anywhere.
These advocates believe understaffing, along with an influx of gang-affiliated inmates, are what's contributing to the violence in Georgia prisons.
It's reached the point that the staff is not really in charge.
The Georgia Department of Corrections tells WJCL 22 they're actively working to recruit more correctional officers. They say in the month of July alone, they held 120 job fairs and ended up hiring 136 officers. They say they're also working to decrease turnover rates, and the numbers reflect their work. But Randolph feels their efforts are not enough. He feels until the conditions inside these prisons improve, understaffing will remain an issue.
Nobody wants to work in a prison, and unfortunately, it's just that's where we are.
It's unfortunate, and that's the stuff that we continue to see on a daily and weekly basis.
Lawrence Woods is now the latest Smith State Prison inmate to have died behind prison walls.
He was in his cell and started complaining of chest pains and shortness of breath. There was no officers or staff around for him to receive any type of medical help.
That's Brian Randolph with the Human and Civil Rights Coalition of Georgia. He says he's in communication with inmates inside this prison.
The entire dorm started yelling and screaming and beating on the cell doors and windows for medical attention for him, and he never received it.
Woods was serving time for voluntary manslaughter, but Randolph says he was well liked among his fellow inmates.
The amount of people that reached out to us about him told us a lot about his character in the prison.
Randolph is in touch with Woods' family.
When I spoke with them, they had heard nothing from the prison as far as what exactly happened.
Randolph adds the family found out everything that happened from Woods' fellow inmates.
That was one of the biggest things that they were really upset about, is that they had received no information whatsoever from the prison. It all came from inmates.
That's why he says the family is now considering pursuing legal action against the Department of Corrections.
At some point, the courts are going to have to get involved.
Channel 911.
Hey, this is the nurse on duty at Rogers State Prison.
Yes,
we need 2 ambulances en route to pick up 2 offenders. They're both unresponsive with lacerations to the head.
What you're hearing,
we've got an offender who needs to be, we need EMS here for. He's been stabbed.
Our 911 calls.
I have a 41-year-old male who was involved in an altercation last night.
Made from Rogers State Prison in Tattnall County.
Our provider stapled him up this morning and gave him some sutures, but now he's complaining of a headache and some dizziness, and he has an elevated blood pressure.
These calls are all from the month of October.
We have an offender with a head trauma and lacerations on his left shoulder.
We asked the Georgia Department of Corrections how many life flights there have been out of this prison from January through October. They said 5.
Just kind of shows of, what's been transpiring at Rogers the last few months.
Brian Randolph from the Human and Civil Rights Coalition of Georgia says he feels understaffing is what's contributing to the violence.
The inmates are taking advantage of that shortage of staff, and the gangs are running the places, and you see the extortion, you see the all-out violence.
WJCL 22 News got a hold of these staffing numbers from the Georgia Department of Corrections annual reports. We found in 2016 there were 5,587 correctional officers in the state. In 2022, there were just 2,516. In 2020, 28% of correctional officer jobs were vacant. Just 2 years later, it was almost double that at 55%.
Shortage of staff is a major problem. I don't think the GDC will deny that one bit.
The Department of Corrections has been trying to fill the jobs by offering higher pay and holding job fairs. They say turnover rates have gone down in the last 3 years, but Randolph says more needs to be done so that calls like this.
911.
Hey, this is the Rogers State Prison. We need an ambulance.
Become less common.